Remnants is the latest EP from Sarcoughagus. This is a Cleveland, Ohio-based death metal band, and this is sort of their first serious follow-up to their debut LP from just a couple years ago, and it comes with a change in their general lineup. Now, I didn't feel like this band was all that serious or all that good when they started out. Their first demo was just that really basic kind of hip hop beat feeling hardcore death metal that was so rampant at the time. And during the pandemic, it really hit a fever pitch where a lot of bands were just coming out with that same style and they weren't really building upon it in all that interesting of a way. The thing that I did like turned from that their promo from 2020 was a song Force Fed. It felt like it was a classic death metal style song with taking some influence from Autopsy, and that fed into some of the better moments on their debut Delusions of the Sick. I am a fan of anything old school death metal, but I'm not so diehard to just accept anything that just kind of carries that tag. And my big thing with bands in this style, and I'm not going to rant about it here, I'm just going to say, is that if you don't have the riffs, you don't have death metal. And really, there was no knack to that songwriting. There was nothing catchy. There was nothing solid. There was nothing all that impressive about that debut, and it wasn't there for me. And so I didn't write off the band, but it just felt like a very non-serious thing that didn't warrant a full length. And so I think they needed more time to cook, and they got more time to cook. So let's hear what they sound like now. So I'm definitely not meaning to sound like a dick, but I think that first record, there was nothing all that serious about it beyond having cool cover artwork. But it was all aesthetics, and I think what Remnants does better, and probably a lot better than anything they've done before, is that it writes detailed, aggressive death metal songs. And I think paring their lineup down to a trio means that they're more focused, they're writing better songs with much more detail, and they're hitting upon a sort of almost a Cannibal Corpse-esque sound. But the steps that were taken after Cannibal Corpse had sort of reached their crest in the mid 90s. So when I reference a band like a Bromelain or Mangled Torsos, what I mean is that those were bands that lived up to the brutality expected at the time, and they put a twist on it that was kind of their own thing. I don't think that this band necessarily has that twist in mind yet, but they're definitely reaching that level of brutality that you would expect from like kind of a 95 death metal album. And that's a good place to start because the band have sort of worked in their own touch on the main songs here. There's 4 songs, I think, that are all new, and they've re-recorded and rewritten 2 songs from their debut full length to show that they've changed a little bit, obviously, and they're sort of grabbing some songs that were maybe more memorable from their debut and reworking them in some sense. But the moment that you switch over to those 2 bonus songs, you realize this band has come a long way since that debut full length album. They've gotten a lot better at just cutting more riffs and tying them together. And the drummer is quite a lot better on this record. I don't know if it's a new drummer or not, but just much more effective, a lot more brutal, less of the hardcore beats of just a certain era. But just reminds me of the 90s that just never quite pulled together. But some of that is inherent to the more hardcore influenced side of brutal death metal. And I know that's part of the current kind of Cleveland sound with Sarcoughagus and all those bands like that. So they kind of stick out in both areas. Like this is much more authentic death metal. This is much more my type of thing. I think they're pretty good at it. They're not whipping out solos as often as I want. I think the vocalist is still pretty good, but overall, this EP shows that they're a little bit more serious. Like maybe this is going to be a solid death metal band if they keep writing songs like they do on the first 4 here. So I'm stoked for that. I think there's a lot of potential here in a band that just grows over the course of a couple of years. And there's no crime in putting out a full length too early. I think that they're ready for something else now. And this demo shows this EP shows that they've got the right idea. So Positive thoughts from me. I think this is a solid EP. It shows where they were in the past. It shows where they're at now. And I think whatever change occurred in the last 3 years, it was all positive because what they're doing now is totally solid in terms of reaching for that old school death metal reference with some sense and some brutality. So check these guys out. See if they're your thing. This is probably the one release I would say that you probably want to start with and maybe move backwards from there and see if you like it. This releases today on May 10th. Check it out now. Read my review for more thoughts and see what you think.